Hey everybody, I'm Chris Metzler, one of the programmers with SF Doc Fest. We've been bringing kind of some of the most interesting and cool documentaries from around the world to the Bay Area for the last 23 years. Still can't believe that, but nowadays we get not only Q and A's live and in person at the Roxy, but here virtually online. And we're lucky enough to have producer and editor Jose Brooks here from the really terrific documentary you just saw, Allihopa. Welcome, Jose.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Um, Maybe a good place to kind of start is um, how did you kind of first hear about this story and get involved in making the film?
So that's kind of an interesting little tidbit. The director, Kordowski, is Kurdish and was a refugee to Canada and grew up in Canada. But his wife is Swedish from this northern region where the team was founded. And so he started to become aware of this random uprising of this little Kurdish odd happening in where his wife was from in this random small little town, and that was kind of how he bonded with her Swedish side of the family over this sport because they also were a big fan of Dalkurd because Dalkurd was playing the most beautiful football in the region, this really expressive style that isn't typical to Sweden. And so he'd been following him for a long time and then had become friends with a couple of the players, and the players started to say, like, the story is now, can we make it to Allsvenskan? It's not once we make it. So yeah, we kind of got ready real quick, and I think from when we decided we were going to actually go through with this, it was about 2 months until we started shooting. So it was a lot to get together and get over there, but we almost didn't make it in time, honestly.
Oh wow. Well, and maybe I'll take a step back in time. You grew up in the Bay Area, is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I grew up in San Jose.
Very cool. And growing up, did you know that you wanted to make films or documentaries, or how did you how did you kind of find yourself making
Yeah.
film?
Well, I grew up, my grandfather was an incredible storyteller. And so um, I grew up in love with, he's just like super detailed and would walk you along. And so I grew up, I think, in love with the art of storytelling, and then took a quick detour towards law school. And at the last second, realized that wasn't for me. Fell into an acting class, fell in love with acting and, that form of storytelling. Got frustrated with lack of opportunity for the responsibility of telling the story. You start out, you get these little parts. And so the director, Cordo, and myself met in an acting class and started making our own stuff. Started in scripted, but this was too good of an opportunity. We are both huge soccer players and fans of the game, and really passionate about. Uh, Both have sort of immigrant backgrounds. Not myself, but my mother, and so we're like, it was kind of a no-brainer when those two came together with this story, and we just decided to take a shot at a doc and tried to make it feel as narrative as possible. But I mean, you couldn't have written it any better, really, the way things unfolded. And there was a moment where before we got there, they were winning and winning and winning, and we thought, oh, we're going to be too late. That it's going to be already sealed by the time we get there. There'll be no stakes. But the second we got there, they started to lose, and we started to wonder, are we the reason they're losing? The distraction of the cameras. We were a small crew, but still, we were in every practice in the locker rooms, these tiny locker rooms, very intimate. Um, so yeah, there was a second where we were afraid we didn't have an ending to this thing, where it wasn't going to be a good one.
Oh wow, yeah. Did you ever bring up that jinx effect with the players at all, or was that just kind of you guys on the filmmaking team?
Uh, there was a moment where the assistant coach sort of alluded to it
Uh-huh.
because there was a point where while we were there, ESPN requested access, and The Guardian as well. They wanted to do a short documentary as well, and so they turned them away. But he did allude to, we don't need any more cameras here. So we're lucky we got there first, which was cool.
What do you think? I mean, what do you think the biggest challenge during the making of the film was? You know, kind of coming from that more narrative fiction background to the more, kind of impromptu documentary
Mhm.
style?
Um, the biggest challenge, I think, was just feeling the weight of, I mean, the responsibility, honestly, because as I said, they were turning other incredible news organizations away. And I think the only reason they gave us this opportunity was because Cordo, the director, is Kurdish, and he had established a relationship with them, and they knew that he was going to honor the story. Um, but at the same time, I think we all felt the responsibility of it, because they had all worked so hard. And I mean, you're dealing with, you know, real people. This is their life, and they're letting you in, and they're in the middle of maybe their most important moment of their life. And it just felt like it felt very heavy, but also so joyful. And honestly, I the biggest challenge of production was that, and then editing was a whole nother kettle of fish because I had only edited scripted things before. Um, but yeah, I would say the responsibility we felt. But at the same time, like they invited us to we went to two weddings. One is in the film, and then another, the assistant coach invited the team because we were, by the end, we really felt like part of the family. And um, I will say covering the games logistically with our very small crew was challenging because there's just always something you're gonna miss. And
Mm.
uh because we had our main DP who was incredible, and honestly we couldn't have done it without him. He's a Canadian guy who's worked in for the CBC for a long time, and so his ability to cut in camera essentially, because they would send him into the field and say, hey, cover this, march
Right.
or something, and he would shoot a whole scene. He'd give me nice wide, punch in for nice inserts, and like he did a lot of the editing in camera and had a great eye for story. And
Oh,
then we
that's
had a
cool.
Swedish guy who didn't have a ton of experience with the camera. He was a great artist. And then we had me, I was running sound as well as uh, during the games recording with like a little like an Osmo, like a stabilized camera on the
Mm.
sidelines. So yeah, I mean, it was full bore for like 2 straight months.
Oh, wow.
But it never felt like work because I don't know, it was a dream. It was a dream.
That's cool. And then, when you came back, I mean, and being there on the field, but then kind of going in the editing room. I mean, did you guys know what your story was when you went into the editing room, or was that something that you guys had to kind of discover as you started to dig in?
Well, the way that we always knew that the games were going to be our structure in a sense, or at least our uh, big tent poles.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I said, the fact that they barely pulled the plane up before it crashed at the end uh, gave us a great structure in and of itself. Um, One, there was just a substantial amount of footage to sort through, right? Like every
Yeah.
day, we were there every day for practice, pretty much. And so I'll be honest, like at one point, I did tell the director, a very close friend of mine, I was like, and like back to that responsibility thing, I was like, I don't know. I've never dealt with this much footage. I don't even know where to start. So there was a dark moment for sure. Um, but yeah, the games helped a lot, and the I think the hardest part was focusing, getting rid of enough so that you could see the story.
Mm.
And then, you know, because there was at one point, Rob is the guy with the shaved head who scores the winning goal. Like he's such an interesting character, and he had so many pieces that drew focus from the main through line. If you included them, you wanted to learn more about him. You know,
Mm.
he's he's got a lot of opinions, and he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. So it kind of like at certain points started to pull towards being a film about him. And so like finding that balance of the soccer through line, the Kurdish dream through line, and then each individual players sort of giving you enough to feel invested in them, but still having them pull the line of the team going towards this goal of both statehood for Kurdistan and Allsvenskan. Um, and then like there'd be points where you'd start to get into more of the social aspects, and you'd start to lose the tension of the threat of, well, we've got this big game on Saturday. So it was
Mm.
the balancing of all those threads was definitely the biggest challenge.
I imagine. Well, it turned into a really terrific film, and I know you've had a chance to kind of screen in some really cool places around the world over the last year. And so, is there kind of a post film recap of like what's happened with the team and some of the people profiled since then? That would be exciting to share.
Well, um, that's bittersweet for sure. The so the next season, after the film ends, the following season, they go to Allsvenskan. But one of the threads that was not included in the film was that they were forced to. This is kind of loaded because we're considering putting this film, recutting it a little bit and putting this thread back in, to be honest. But the team didn't get the support they deserved in that town.
Oh
They were
wow!
forced to move the next season because the town council refused. I don't know if refused, was unwilling to upgrade the stadium to the necessary specifications for Allsvenskan.
Oh
And
wow!
so the team had to take the show on the road and move. They moved closer to Stockholm, but they didn't have a home there. Every game was like a road game. They had no fans. I mean, they had some, but the stadium was empty for the most part. So they had almost no home games. Every game was a away game. Which means they weren't getting any revenue, which means they had to start selling players. They had to sell some of their best players mid-season just to stay up. Um, so long story short, they were competing with some of the best teams for a while, but they didn't have the infrastructure, and I think that move really hurt them. And at the time, we didn't include the move because it was sort of ambiguous to us and unclear. Did Dalkurd want to leave? Was that part of it? Would they want to go to a bigger city, or was there really something a little more unfortunate going on?
Right.
And as those years have gone by, I mean, there's Nazis marching in this small town. It's a very homogenous place.
Wow.
And there's this 100-year-old Swedish team who also plays in that stadium. Um, and so, long story short, it's become clear that there was something more going on, and some of the players have told us, like, it's very clear. If this was a Swedish team, the situation would be very different.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's been sort of um, disheartening, but and the team has struggled as well. Pasha, the captain, is now actually the head coach.
Oh,
Um,
huh.
yeah, and Rav is basically after that season in Allsvenskan, the bald, the shaved head guy, um, sort of retired and went in to get his coaching license. Rewan, the young kid, played in. He played. Got picked up by a couple other Allsvenskan teams, so he's still playing at a very high level. Uh, but yeah, unfortunately, the team really was hurt by that move, and I don't know that they ever recovered. And so,
Mm.
and it's been interesting, Chris. Like this film is still not screened in Sweden. It's like we did our. This was in a sense a love letter to Sweden because the Kurds who and all the other immigrants on the team found such a home in Sweden and were so grateful for everything they gave them. And we really tried to show that. And I mean, in some ways, it's a love letter to Dalkurd, but it's also, I believe, paints Sweden in a very good light
Yeah.
uh, because they couldn't have done it anywhere else. Not maybe not anywhere else, but most places they wouldn't have got the support they did there. And
Yeah.
so, but this, it, I don't want to get too political, but there's this whole thing with Sweden wanting to get into NATO and Turkey basically saying you've been too friendly to the Kurds. You need to change how open you are about allowing them to express their
Right.
culture freely. And I think that that's really had an impact on the film because that's essentially what the film is. It's about how they were able to express themselves and wear their flag in this country, which they wouldn't be
Right.
able to do in Turkey. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying we made a more political film than we realized. But we're grateful that you guys were willing to share it, and we're still doing our best to get it out there.
No, I'm sorry to hear that, and I think for those in the audience, like so many film festivals in other parts of the world are very much government funded, and so
Mhm.
they always have to watch out, maybe a little bit too risk averse in regards to what toes that they step on.
For sure.
Hopefully that'll change at some point in time, and I always try to remind our audiences that we're lucky enough that filmmakers like you share their films with us, and so you know our role as an audience is kind of become your grassroots street team. So the films that you see during the festival, it's like post about it on social media, talk about it, after drinks tonight, after the screening, whatever it might be. And so, what are ways that people can continue to follow the film and kind of help spread the word?
I mean, the best way to follow along with, I think, the life of this thing is on Instagram at Dalkurd Film. Um, but yeah, we're doing our best. We're screening. The UN is screening it.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, which would be really cool for. Um, yeah, so we're doing our best to get it out there. But yeah, follow along on Instagram at Dalkurd Film, and I just real quick, I would like to say thank you so much to everybody who took the time to watch this film. And yeah, if you liked it, tell your friends. It's hopefully there's still a chance to catch it here, and otherwise follow us along, and we'll do our best to get it to you.
Absolutely. Well, cool, Jose. And obviously, we in the Bay Area look forward to your next film too. So hopefully, we'll get a chance to welcome you back. And thanks again.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks everybody.